Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to my channel and you can call me Mojana. I came back from France quite recently and I thought it would be fun to make a video about my culture shock experience and present you 14 things that surprised me during my stay there. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. I know that the first thing I want to talk about is not really a culture shock, but I really wanted to include this because I was born in one city, I was raised there, and I lived my entire life there until I moved to France. So when I came there, I realized they have different nature. Yeah, so it was just, I don't know, it was really pretty to see like some bushes or trees in the balconies. And I remember myself clearly when I was walking in the middle of January and I saw a blossoming tree and I was like, whoa! At the same time, as I come from the colder climate, it was very depressing for me not to see snow in winter. So for this reason, I was mostly going out only in the evenings when it's dark and I don't see any mud and everything's alright. The second thing that surprised me is that people tend to say bonjour or bonsoir to other people in their district, and it's a way of being polite. But for me, it just felt really uncomfortable, I'd say, because if you say bonjour and you don't add anything else, like what time is it, I'm left with this question, what did he want from me? And I think about it for like an entire hour and it's so annoying. I mean, later I got used to that, but I didn't come to a point when I'll be saying bonjour to a random stranger. The third culture shock is that fashion in France is quite a big deal, and I wouldn't have included that, but I remember when my dad called me and he asked how do people dress there, and my answer was they don't know how to dress. Because when I moved there were a few days when it was really cold and I was wearing my winter shoes, woolen socks, my Christmas sweater, my winter coat, and also a thick scarf on top, and I was freezing literally. And I saw people wearing sneakers, and it's like it felt as though they prioritize beauty over health. And my logic is that what's the point of dressing pretty if you'll get sick soon and you'll end up in a hospital and you won't be able to show off your beauty anymore? So yeah, that was a bit weird. The fourth culture shock is that there's a huge population of Muslims in France, and before moving there I knew that I'm gonna see a lot of black people and that's fine, but when I moved there I was like, holy shit, like there are mosques and Islamic schools, and I'm like, I thought France is more like a Catholic / Protestant country, but there are a lot of Arabic speaking people there. Then I realized that a lot of people come from Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco, so that explains why is it so. And I genuinely think that you can easily survive in France if you speak Arabic. Really. The fifth culture shock is be ready to see guns everywhere anytime you go out into the city, and people checking your bags in places like churches or libraries. So that was like a huge minus for me because it led me to not feeling safe abroad. And sometimes I remember I'd like see policemen walking with huge guns like that, and I'd choose to change my route and go around because I'm just feeling intimidated. At the same time, I understand that France is one of the main targets of Islamic terrorism, and they're just like taking these measures to protect us, but for me it just created more fear instead of making me feel safe. And I think that instead of taking these drastic measures, people should put more effort into making sure that such criminals don't walk in freedom, because it just, in my opinion, all these guns, it's just pointless, and I really didn't like seeing them. Another aspect is people leading you to the doors thing. I'm not sure I'm formulating it correctly, but basically when you're out and you need some sort of service, and at the end of the conversation with another person, they lead you to the doors, open it, and say goodbye to you. And for me, it just felt really awkward because it feels like I don't need you to lead me to the door. because I have two hands, I can open it by myself, so you just stay in your place. But at the same time, it's their culture and I have to respect that, so in their point of view, it's being polite. But for me, it's just like being annoying. The seventh culture shock is that rules in France, according to my German friend, are just recommendations, and in my humble opinion, they're just decorations, because each time I'm standing and willing to cross the pedestrian passage, 50% of the cars don't stop. And it's like, where I come from, if you don't do that, you'll get a fine and you'll kill someone, for sure. And for some reason in France, they like put rules in order to show off that they exist, but they don't apply. Like 80% of traffic lights are absolutely pointless, and yeah, it's just very weird. But at the same time, if you don't follow the rules, you won't get what you need. So it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like a mess, I'd say. The eighth culture shock is that everything in France takes centuries. Because I went to the social security department and it takes almost 2 months in order for me to get a response from them. Or for example, I got a text message from my French bank that I need to go and pick up my card. I went there, I spoke to a French man, and like he brought my card and he looked up on his computer and was like, oh sorry, you need to go to the same advisor you've been last time, I can't give you the card. And he told me this holding my card in his hands. And I had all the documents needed. And it's like, really? Yeah, I don't know why it takes so freaking long for them to do stuff. The ninth culture shock is that French is literally a paper nation, because I got maybe at least 6 letters from my bank just because I opened my account there. And for me, it was just bizarre. Or also I needed to get my documents in order, and I contacted the finance institution or something, and I told them, due to the quarantine, your institution was closed. Can I get it done online, please? And they're like, no, send everything by post. The 10th culture shock is that French are actually quite conservative, and it was one of the expectations that in Western Europe people are like more free, because they have in France one of their main values is liberté, and like gay marriages are accepted. The first time I saw a gay couple kissing was in France, and it was very cute. Then I've heard about like nudist resorts and stuff, and I thought like people are more open to new ideas, there's more variety there. But the moment I told someone that I'm taking a gap year, their reaction was like, it's not typical to take a gap year in France, I'm afraid. And me being like, what am I supposed to answer to that? Because I'm not willing to study something I hate, then get a diploma, get a job I'm not interested in, and then blame the entire world, and especially my parents, for how ruined my life is, the way maybe 70% of Lithuanians do. So that was a bit disappointing. 11th aspect is that French are okay with your bad French. I know that this statement varies depending on different people, but for me, it had that perfect balance, because where I come from, if you know the language poorly, people will make fun of you. In Germany, it's like in the opposite, they appreciate and like respect you so freaking much. And in France, they're okay. So when you're learning a foreign language, you're feeling like a total baby, and just to like see people not be very judgmental, it was very nice, I think. And yeah, I kind of like that balance, if that makes sense. The 12th culture shock I've heard about before is that you need to hear 100 no's until you get a yes. And from my experience, it was you need to hear 1 billion no's until you get a yes. For example, I was searching for another apartment because I wanted to change, and I was calling and talking to people and saying I'm searching for 3 months. Because I didn't know if I'm gonna stay longer, and they were all answering with the same word, no. Then I talked about it with my German friend, and she told me that you never say that you're gonna stay for 3 months, you say that you're gonna stay a year, otherwise the owner won't let you see the apartment, and you need to sign the contract for a year, and before you move out, you need to inform the owner 1 month before that you want to get rid of your contract. So that was a bit sad to hear, because honesty is one of my main values, and in order to get what you want in France, you need to lie. So it's like, At the same time, I'm not blaming French for being a no nation, because it just built my stamina and hardened me as a person. The 13th culture shock was probably the most annoying out of all, which is French are not straight to the point. And it's funny because I've heard about this before. One lady from my home country was telling the story that, let's say, for example, you invite a plumber to come to your house. They don't get straight to the work. You need to offer them coffee, then have a 30-minute conversation, and then they'll do the work. This is how it works in France. So what happened to me was that I was talking to one French lady, and I saw that the conversation is not going anywhere, but we were like sitting for 30 minutes, and I'm like, I'm gonna go now. And she was like, good idea. And I'm like, why didn't she say that my problem won't be solved right at the beginning? And she didn't appreciate my time and her own time. So that was quite awkward. I also realized that some French people don't have the guts to say no when they have to, and they say yes or maybe, and it leaves you with like false hopes, and you think that your plans will get implemented, but they won't, and it leaves you like in silence, and you try to reach out, but they ignore you. And I was talking with my friend about it, and he's like, this is the way French people avoid confrontation. And I'm like, it just caused so much pain that I wanted to like straight pack everything and go back to my home country, even though I liked where I was living. That was probably like the top thing I really didn't like during my stay, unfortunately. And the final 14th culture shock is that French is quite of a complaining nation, something I pretty much liked, because where I come from, we complain a lot and we don't do anything about it. On the second place, we run away from the problem and we blame others instead of ourselves. And the rarest thing on the planet is we do something about it. So in France, it's like in the opposite. You're unhappy, you do something about it. So like demonstrations, manifestations, they're happening on a daily basis, probably. And I mean, it's good. But at the same time, it felt a little bit as though French are complaining for the sake of complaining, if that makes sense, when things are already good from my point of view, but I'm not French, so I'm not feeling eligible to talk about it. So, and the time has come to ask myself, do I regret going there? And the answer is no, because I grew a lot as a person. The only problem is that I grew mostly through facing a lot of shit that could have been easily avoided, but I wouldn't change anything, because life is always about all those ups and downs, and without having experienced your lows, you can't have your ups, if that makes sense. One of the main reasons why I chose France is that it had some sort of mystery for me personally, and I wanted to explore it before, and I came back and I'm feeling still the same way. So I think it was just the first chapter. I'm also thinking that I was quite negative in this video, to be completely honest with you, and that I'm getting myself into trouble by publishing it. But happened what happened, and I wouldn't change anything. So I think that's it. I hope you had fun watching it, and you can go and live your life now. Bye!